Welcome back to season 3 of Unlocking Our Code podcast. We hope you caught up to all of the other episodes from season 1 and season 2. We're so excited to be back on season 3. We're bringing you guys amazing topics on this season. And we'll start with this one tonight. Tonight we have interesting topic, triggers. Have you ever wondered what information is behind your triggers and why they are felt with such intensity in the human experience? Tonight, we'll dive into what a trigger is, how it feels, and we'll dive into much information. Hi, Lou.
Hi. We're back.
Yes, the break was nice.
I know. I know it was. I hope everyone caught up. I know we have a lot of good stuff out there, but we're looking forward to this season and all the good info that we're going to be bringing out.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what this new season actually, what we dive into, the guests we end up having. I'm excited to see how it unfolds.
Yep, I know. And this one here, the triggers. I think it triggered me too.
It triggered you to record. It triggered you to talk about triggers.
Yeah, I did, because I had to I was like, dang, I wanted to give some examples of things that I realized have, along the way have triggered me. And then obviously it brings back why, why these reactions are happening. So anywho, I'm excited to talk about this one.
Yeah, me too. I feel like triggers is such a powerful topic in general, just to dive into and bring awareness to. But let's start with, what are triggers?
Yeah.
What does that word mean?
Yeah. I mean, I have something here that I feel that it's probably the closest thing that we can get to. Triggers are like an emotional reaction that arise from unresolved wounds. They're often rooted in our past experiences, our childhood traumas, or a shadow aspect of ourselves. They're like mirrors reflecting back to us what we need to heal. And I do feel that a lot of the times that we're triggered by something, it's either affecting our a shadow part of ourselves that we spoke about in the last episode from season 2. That shadow part of us, or it's triggering our ego, right? Or it's something that's triggering our childhood, like a trauma from our childhood. That's where I feel like those are the main 3 things that when something is triggering us, that's what it's affecting, one of those 3 things, or it can be all 3 or 2 or whatever,
Yeah, I agree. I also see it as just basically like unresolved information within us, right? Just something pending. It's just information that's pending there until we're ready to deal with it. But the way this information shows us that it's still pending there in the back end is by us being triggered, right? It's like it won't leave, it won't go anywhere unless we take a look at it. But how do we even recognize that we're being triggered, that we actually have triggers? Because, right, like before I even heard this word 5 years ago, I never knew what a trigger really was. I just knew I reacted a lot on things and stuff like that, but I never really looked any deeper than that. Did you?
Yeah. No, I feel that, we go about life saying things like, man, that person really pushes my buttons, or you really push my buttons, or that person really gets to me or gets under my skin, or I just don't like that person because they just, they rub me the wrong way,
Yeah.
Those are all different ways of saying it. But at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's something that's triggering some sort of reaction or emotion in you that doesn't sit comfortable with you, and it can come up as an anger, as fear, rejection, as like you just genuinely don't like a person, and so those are the type of emotions, right? But But it's very easy for us to point the finger and say that person did it, or that person pushed my buttons. I think like in a, I guess I could take it to like a relationship. And, you know, in a relationship, it's very easy to blame a person for making you upset, right? It's for like saying things like, oh, you know, yeah, I'm pissed off because you said this, or you know, you're doing this and it's making me mad. And so like, you know, it's kind of like taking it back and blaming the other person for your explosion or your explosive reaction, right? Yeah. Even it doesn't have to be like an anger. It could be it can be jealousy. It can be somebody, you know, making you feel like you have to, I don't know, like you're like stroking your, like getting under your ego and then making you feel like you have to show that you're better than them, or just something like that, where you feel that one, like you have to react. But yeah, I've never realized before that being triggered is, it all has to do with like me, you know, or you yourself as a person, right? Has nothing to do with the person in front of you or the person causing you to feel that way. And that's when I started learning about that. It was a lot of like, oh God, you know, like I think a lot of it was like my shadow part, you know, the part of me that I refused to accept, or I'm denying that I am that. And a lot of it was my ego too, thinking that I am, you know, like someone had to treat me a certain way. Or I feel like one of the reasons that I realized it was like when, let's say for like, if it had to do like with a social event, or people that I knew weren't like including me in it, and I was like, oh, I'm hurt by that, and like it was like hurting my feelings or whatever, like why am I not being included, you know? And then I felt like some sort of resentment towards that person for not including me. But at the end of the day, it had nothing to do with that person. It was just my ego being like, oh, you know, you're not good enough to be there, or whatever. You're hurting my ego at that point, because I feel like I should be included. What do you mean, you know? It's just, so it has nothing to do with a person, but it has everything to do with me, and a lot of it in my relationship with my husband. Oof, that's a I have stories for that one.
Yeah, for sure. I feel that like in relationships, it shows up pretty strong, right? I feel like every relationship we're in is a mirror in itself. Yeah. Every single person that you are connected to, it could be at work, it could be your husband, your child, like every single person, if we just got used to seeing them as like, they're just a mirror, mirroring back parts of ourselves that have not been dealt with, that have not been processed. Like there is emotions there still that need to be processed, right? But I also feel like when we just go on in the world allowing other people to have that power over us, like making us feel a certain way all the time, like especially when we are triggered by someone else and we're reacting all the time, like I feel like that's a lot of like energy that we're giving away to other people when we don't understand our own triggers. We're giving a lot of our power away because we don't understand what to do with the information that's in front of us. So when somebody gives us the gift of triggering us, because it is a gift if you choose to see it that way, then we can process the information in a different way if we choose to see it as like it's just information being given to me for me. Exactly. Right? But when we react to the information given to us by others, then we're just simply giving our power away over and over and over.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you're letting others control how you're feeling, but then you're not really ever pausing to like reflect on why you're feeling that way. So you're never really fully aware, you know, that it all comes from you.
Yeah, and it's all because also like we weren't taught to look within. We were always taught to look externally, right? To point out instead of point in. But in this new era that we're in this new world that's being birthed right now, you can no longer point the finger out. I mean, you could keep trying, but we're in a whole different world at this moment, in a whole different frequency as a collective. So it's going to come to a point in our lifetime where you no longer will be able to point out ever, because you're going to have to look at yourself, right? The more we're ascending as a collective, the more are we being asked to look within instead of like blaming out, right?
Yeah, which is great. I mean, that sounds amazing if people can do that. I'm not saying that, we're eventually going to be like perfect or whatever, that we're all going to be like healthy minds and stuff like that. But the goal is to start heading that way, right? To start making better decisions, and start having more awareness, and where you can, process things in a healthier way. And a trigger is huge, because you can actually stop every time something makes you mad or upset. Instead of reacting, you can just stop and take a breath and try and understand where that anger is coming from, or where that frustration is coming from, or that disappointment is coming from. And instead of like unleashing or right away reacting, right? You just want to stop and just say, wait a minute, where is this affecting me? Or why is this affecting me? Having that level of self-awareness is, as a collective, would be amazing, honestly.
Well, imagine as a collective, it's like no more violence, no more wars, no more fighting.
Exactly.
Because we're all taking responsibility of our own stuff.
Yourself.
Right now, we see a lot of that happening in the world because we're not taking responsibility of our own selves, right? But it will come to a point, I believe, in our lifetime where we will no longer see that, where we will take responsibility as humans about our own emotions, our own triggers, our own, if you really think about it, a lot of the acts of violence at this time, it's a trigger. Something happened that the person decided to act in that way, right? But if the person knew their trigger, knew the information behind the emotion that took him to that place, then I think our world would look very different, right? Much peace. There would be more peace, I don't know. I just feel like it's important that we learn and we become aware of this. And with that, I did want to touch on, like, how does it feel when we feel triggered? What are some of the things that we feel?
Too. Definitely off the bat, anger, right? Resentment, sadness, frustration, right? That you can immediately feel. You can get but triggers don't always have to be like bad, right? Somebody can trigger you in a good way also, and we never question those, right? We never stop to question those, but it's also a good thing when you because I know we've been talking a lot about like somebody mirroring you, and that's something that I just kind of want to make sure that everybody really stops to pay attention when we do say that someone is mirroring you, and I feel like I'm trying to emphasize it because I think for me it really was very hard to it was a hard pill to swallow, hearing somebody tell me they're mirroring you. And I was just like, okay, I know what a mirror is. If I look at the mirror, the reflection that I'm seeing is me. But it doesn't, to me, I was like, you're telling me that my husband's pissing me off, because of what he's doing. And it's just a reflection that's mirroring back to me. And I just couldn't understand that, But definitely understanding it now, and now that I see it and I've learned it, and I'm doing all this work for me, I'm like, holy shit, it is like a mirror. And that really is like him being in front of me, showing me something about me. He does something unknowingly, has no idea that is going to affect me in any way, shape, or form. And maybe I didn't even know that it was going to affect me in any way, shape, or form. But maybe somewhere in my subconscious is like ready to explode the moment it gets talked about or mentioned, right? And he, let's say, for example, one of the things that that were my biggest triggers were like when we talk about chores around the house or expectations around the house, right? And I guess I'll lean more into the anger part, because I know you mentioned like what emotions and are, do we feel when we get triggered, and I'll mention, like, for me is like I'll lean in on the anger part, right? I didn't understand why when he would mention simple things as into like let's say, for example, like what, calling me when he's getting out of work to ask me what's for dinner, right? Like, I did not know. I that to me it automatically piss me off. It would just make me mad. I had an attitude with him the entire rest of the day. In my head, I didn't realize what it was doing to me, but I was thinking like, who the fuck do you think you are to be calling me and asking me what's for dinner? Like, you figure it out. You want to eat. You want food. You come home and make yourself some dinner. Like, why do you feel that I should already have food for you? Like, what the hell do you think I am? Like, I'm not your maid. I'm not your servant, right? Those were my initial thoughts right off the bat. His point of view is, hey, I'm driving home. Like, do you have something in mind to make for dinner? Because I could stop at the store and buy whatever it is that we need to make it. And when he comes home, I know that if I were to ask him, hey, can you help me make dinner, he'll do it in a heartbeat, right? He would do it. But I'm so pissed off that he even mentioned, that he even called me to ask me what's for dinner. To me, my trigger is like, you're expecting me to have food for you. You're expecting to come home and to have a hot meal ready. You just want to know if food is already ready, like if I already done my job, like I'm supposed to. Like, that's a lot to put in one question that he just called and asked me, right? And my mind goes like from 0 to 100 real quick. But then, once I started doing all this, trying to figure out, I don't want to be that reactive person all the time. That's like stuff that I want to work through. And I started to realize, where does all this come from? Where does this feeling like there's all these expectations hanging over me? Why do I feel like he expects these things from me? Like, he has to have a hot meal ready and stuff like that. That was coming from the way I grew up, seeing my parents, right? My dad having that expectation, and whether he had that expectations on my mom or not, but my mom was like coming like, oh, your dad's like, his meal had to be hot and ready by the time he got home. And if he sat down, she was like right there making his tortillas, had to be nice and hot. Like, everything was just like ready for him and him only, right? And for us, it's like, oh, if you guys want food, like, serve yourselves, but your dad, everything, your dad. And I felt like, obviously right there, that traditional, Mexican marriage where it's like the dad, everything, the husband, you have to have it. And then if he wanted to have like a barbecue at his friends over, my mom had to serve the friends. My mom had to make sure the food was nice and warm for the man, And so I couldn't stand that. Like, I couldn't stand that, that my mom had to be that person for him. And so, so I carried that resentment. And I feel like all of that brought up, like, I was being placed in that same spot again, like I was being placed in that spot that I did not want to see my parents or my mom in, and I didn't like appreciate of my dad. So anyways, all of that was like really just a build up that hit my, I guess you could mention my childhood traumas, right? Where I didn't like something that I saw as a kid. I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know how to be open or how to question it. I couldn't question it. And so I just lived with it. And then now it's affecting me in my marriage. Like, the hell, don't expect shit from me. You make it yourself, And he's like, where? Well, I'm just wanting to know, like, if you want me to pick something up at the store, like, but my resentment, my anger would stay, and that's been a huge issue between me and my triggers that I'm now that's one of many examples that I'm now learning. This trigger is that before I react, I need to stop, and I need to stop and think, okay, like let this little, you get this little burst of like anger that runs through your entire body. You just start feeling like your blood is boiling. And I'm just like, all right, let it go away, and then try and figure out where's this coming from? Where are these feelings coming from before I react? Because it's unfair for the other person. And now I'm actually feeling a little bit more comfortable telling him, all right, this is triggering. Like, this is reminding me, like, this is where this comes from, where it comes from, But definitely anger. Anger has been one of the ones that I've been dealing with the most. I know there's other feelings, but like I said, I could talk about a whole bunch of examples, but that's my main one probably when I think about triggering. It's like anger and vulnerability.
Yeah, because it takes you back to childhood, to seeing your mom probably tired, having to do all these things for everyone, but no one takes care of her. She's just tired cooking, and it's all these things. We love when we're children, we see our parents with so much love, and we love them, and we don't want nothing to happen to them. We don't want no one hurting them. And yet here's dad demanding all these things from her, even though he sees her tired or he sees her sick. Like, our moms didn't take days off because they were sick.
Yeah.
They didn't take days off because they got home at 9 o'clock at night from work. They still came home and did what they had to do regardless. No one took care of them. And that's painful to watch, especially, as a female yourself, watching that, even for a male, it's painful to watch their mother having to just, in a way, be like, we see it as more like she's just being used, like, and who cares for her, right? Especially if the husband is distant, not loving towards her, but just demanding all the time, right?
Yeah.
Because that I could see how that can definitely now move into your adulthood for sure. For me, it was always like chores. Like, if I'm cleaning and everyone's sitting down, especially my husband laying down while I'm doing everything.
Yeah.
Oh Lord. Like, that was a big trigger for me. Like, there is all these things to do and you're just relaxed.
Yeah.
Like, the part of being relaxed.
Yeah.
I could not understand why if I'm doing all these things, you could just relax. Like, when you're seeing me do all these things, and he's a great helper and everything, but there's days that he just wants to relax.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how to relax. I'm like, no. There's no relaxing happening here on a Saturday, on a Sunday, because we gotta do the laundry, do this, do that, blah, 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 right? When he just wants to relax. So him relaxing was his invitation to tell me, like, slow down, relax.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how to relax. So then when I would get triggered in that way, I would explode, like, everybody get up and everybody start helping, and, stuff like that. Until I started realizing, like, because you don't feel good when you react to a trigger. No. Like, even though you're reacting in that moment, it doesn't feel good. Like, at least I didn't feel good. I felt guilty inside. I felt like, why are you like this?
Why?
Something's wrong with you.
Yeah. Yep.
You're not nice. Like, I just started like telling myself all these things, right? Until I just got exhausted of that pattern. And I started asking myself, okay, what's happening? And then I started putting all things together like you did. Like saying, well, I was the oldest daughter. All the responsibility was on me. I used to take care of 5 little girls, and I was 9 and 10 doing all the chores by myself. And it was just so much as a 9, 10-year-old who can handle that type of level of stress and responsibility as a kid, like for years. Yeah. So now that followed me into adulthood, because now I'm like, now I'm an adult and now it's still happening, like this has to stop. So when I didn't know how to process it, oh my God, I was out of control. Like, a trigger unattended, unseen, unprocessed or unhealed, it's a ticking bomb. Yep. It is so destructive when we are not aware of the trigger, when we don't know how to respond instead of react, we harm ourselves, we harm everybody around. The mood changes at home because mom's upset, right? The children are on the edge. My husband's like, let me get up and start moving. Yeah, because if not, oh my God, this is going to turn into a nightmare. So it's just like understanding like, okay, it's a trigger. It's not really about them not helping in the moment because they're watching a movie or whatever. It's more like about me. Where is this stemming from, right? And I feel like that's why it's important that we understand how does it feel when we're being triggered, right? Some of the notes I have is that when we get triggered, it activates our nervous system in that moment, right? And to what level, it just depends on how intense the trigger is. That's one of the things that happens. Especially when something reminds us of the past, the brain actually thinks that you're in the past. The brain does not understand that you're an adult now and that it's a whole different time. Yeah. The brain thinks that you're still a kid who's being taken advantage of or who's reliving the trauma, right? So it doesn't know the difference. The time doesn't exist for the brain. The brain just thinks, oh, she's back in the past. She's being mistreated. She's being abused. And then all these protective parts start coming in, and the triggers and the protection and all the stuff that happens when the brain believes that you're in the past. So then you go on survival mode, like all these things, right? So it's just like, it's so important to understand how your body reacts when you're being triggered, right?
Yeah.
Right?
It's like you go into the fight, flight, or freeze mode, right? Immediately. Yeah, that's what happens. Something or someone triggers you, your body will automatically go into fight, flight, or freeze. You know, it just happens. And it doesn't always have to be anger, like I mentioned before. But that's one of the things that you mentioned about not feeling good about it. It's true. I that's one of the things that I do. I would always question myself, like, God dang, what's wrong with me? Like, why do you act this way? Like, I can't even put up with myself, like I couldn't even, but I feel like that was always my brain telling me, like, you need to do more digging, or like my soul telling me, like, figure it out, but questioning it. And then, like, it's true. And then it's always like blaming someone else for your reactions. That's terrible too, saying that it's somebody else's fault for why you reacted the way you reacted. That's so unfair. So it's a lot of like seeing these things, but also understanding where it comes from, so you can actually see yourself with more compassion and not blame yourself, not feel guilty for it, because you will feel guilty for reacting the way you react once you realize the things that have been triggering you and why and where it comes from. Always do the digging, but don't like shame yourself or like, make yourself feel guilty for that. I just feel like being able to open up about your triggers and telling, if it's like in a relationship, your partner, even your kids should have the right to know why you reacted the way you reacted. If you feel that you did something and then you're blaming them for your reaction, right? I can easily say, on my way over here, I was thinking, okay, one thing that my kids definitely trigger me almost every single day is in the morning when they don't get up on time, when they're just not morning people. I get triggered by them every single morning. So on my way over here, I was thinking about that, something about the things that trigger me. And I said, Lourdes, you are them. You are not a morning person. You do not like to wake up in the morning either. You do not like to talk to people in the morning, because I don't. And I'll tell everybody, don't talk to me in the morning. Don't have a conversation with me in the morning. I tell Nando all the time, as he's a morning person, he wakes up and boom, right away he wants to have like immediately. The moment he opens his eyes, he's like, and I'm just like, I am instantly pissed off. Like, why are you talking to me so early? Why do you even think that you can even mention words to me this early, And he's like, because I'm awake. Aren't you awake? And I'm just like, I'm not a morning person. I need a calm, quiet morning. And my kids are not morning person. Well, my daughters aren't. And they, oh my God, they piss me off. And it's the same thing. It's because that's who I am. I don't like to get up and be giddy in the morning. And I get mad at, like, I'll get mad at my child. I'll be like, your friends come to pick you up in the morning and you don't even talk to them. You're so rude. Like, that's, I'm like getting triggered by her. But I'm the same way. Like, if somebody were to come that early in the morning, I'd be like, yeah, I'm not gonna have a conversation with you right now. Like, don't. And same thing, we fall asleep really late at night. We're night owls. We're not morning people. And they're me, I'm them. But yet I'm sitting there telling them how terrible they are in the morning, how, I'm like yelling at them at night. And so it's just stuff that I need to go back and be like, I'm the same way. Like, who am I to point fingers and say, like, you guys are the problem? When I'm that's who I am. And that's a part of me that I've always wished I could change. I wish that I could be a morning person. I wish that I could be that 5 a.m. and be like, hey, what's up, guys? I wish I could be that. And that's just, it's not who I am. So they do that. Things like driving, and if I'm driving, obviously if I'm in a hurry, I'm like telling off half of the world when I'm driving. I'm like, oh, driving triggers me.
You're a rage. Dude, what is that called? Rageful driver, or
what is it? A road rage driver.
A road rage driver.
Oh my God, I'm the worst. The moment I get in the car, the things that come out of my mouth.
I would be the person you're raging at then, because when I see drivers like that, I'm like, I'm not moving faster because you want me to move faster. I'm going to go at my own pace. I'm driving safe. I am not moving or going any faster.
You do not want to hear what's coming out of my mouth. For everything, though. Like, for everything. If someone cuts me off, I'm like, ooh, instantly. Like, I feel like heat. Like a freaking, just like gasoline and fire was thrown on me. Like, instant heat, I feel. But one, I'm probably running late. Because I'm always running late. I'm always procrastinating. So I'm always waiting for the last minute of my life to do absolutely anything. So that falls back on me. So I'm out there road raging because people are not fast enough because I'm always late. So I shouldn't be road raging to anyone. It should be just to myself, right? I should be making changes. And then also too, like, when people are cutting me off, I feel like I get that, like, when you get that just like burst of like something scared living shit out of you. I get that too. And I know that fear comes from trauma. Like, I got into terrible bad car accidents before. And so all of that is like my vulnerability, right? Like, I'm just afraid for my life, for my kid's life, whoever's in the car. I'm a terrible backseat driver. I'm always like, my husband's driving, I'm always like, pay attention. Oh my God, did you see that? You're gonna hit him, Yeah. And he can't stand that about me, but I feel like I know where it all comes from, and it's a fear, like I have this fear where at the end of the day, it's me being vulnerable, like for my life, for my family's life. But understanding where all of that comes from, and it's not that he's a terrible driver. It's not that everyone around me drives slow. No, it's all comes back to me, So being able to see those things, I don't know. I feel like it helps me be not a perfect person. It just helps me be a little bit better.
More mindful, right? Yeah. And it's like, if you really think about it, like, the road rage is like, it's a learned behavior. You didn't just wake up one day and decide to like be upset at the whole world, right? You probably had somebody that modeled that growing up, or a friend, or someone that was close to you that when you were growing up used to do that a lot. So it's not even your voice, it's that person's voice. If you really think about it, right? It's like, whoever I learned this behavior from, I got their voice and put it in my mind. Yeah. And when I'm driving, he or she is the one speaking. So it's not about you changing the behavior. It's about you getting their voice out of your head. And when you can get that voice out of your head, things change. Because you realize, like, I've never been that person.
Yeah.
It was the behavior in the voice of that person that just got programmed into my mind. So it's like getting the voice out and saying, that's not who I am.
Yeah.
Right? Even in the late thing, same thing. So you learned it from someone. I'm the opposite. I dislike being late. And if I'm late, I start stressing. I go into like, how could I say, fight or flight immediately, because I start thinking people are going to think like I'm not responsible, especially taking my child to practice. I'm like, if I don't arrive on time, they're going to criticize her. They're going to criticize me. They're going to think I'm not a good mom. And like, I just start ranting on these things, right? So I'm super like, I dislike being late like that. And my husband loves being late. So we're like the opposite. So it's like, we got to get ready ahead of time, you know? So it's always, but it comes from somewhere. It comes, why do I dislike being late? Why am I so hard on myself when I'm late? Where did I learn that? Whose voice
are you listening to?
Am I listening to? Right? It's like the same. It's so funny because like when we were, not funny, but like it's interesting that when we were children, we were being abused, right? Like the words that we would hear and stuff like that. But now we're not children. Now we're abusing ourselves.
Yeah.
We're just using the voices of the people that used to abuse us and we adopt them as our own. But they're not our voices. They're not us.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like they say that in order to heal those parts of us, I heard that the other day, like in order to heal the inner child in those parts of us, the key is to remove the voice and see that you're not that voice.
You're not the voice.
It's just a program, right? Me and my husband were talking about triggers. I was telling him, what have you learned about triggers? Because, you know, he's done a lot of work around that too. And he's like, well, think about it. Triggers are your inner child's programming. I was like, oh my God, I've never thought of it that way yet, right? Yeah. Your triggers is just a program from your inner child.
Yeah.
And that to me felt like, wow, that's so true. I've never seen it in the way of it's like, it's just a program that was created in childhood. And now it's unresolved because when we were kids, we didn't have the tools to resolve it in a positive way or feel the emotion or process whatever happened to us, right? So that's why it's called unresolved information. The trigger is unresolved information from childhood, from the past. So I just think it's just fascinating when you start questioning like your triggers, where they come from. At the end of the day, the triggers are just programs, unresolved information. So I just think it's important that we really, really look at the information behind it.
One of the questions that I have here and I wanted to, maybe we can chat about is, how do we respond to a trigger, or how do we recognize it? You know, how do we recognize what button it's pushing, right? Like, is it our shadow self? Is it childhood trauma, or is it our ego? And I feel like those are the things that, those are some of the things that we can kind of narrow it down to, and really kind of go back and say, okay, take a moment, observe how we're reacting, and say, why is this triggering me? What is it reminding me of? What emotions am I feeling? You know, before we start to, before we explode, right? Or we react, I guess. It doesn't have to be always anger, but just any reaction. And I just think that sometimes there's things that, like, when we talked about the last episode that we did, when we talked about the shadow, you know, our shadow selves, that stuff that we don't really want to admit who we are, but we really are. We have to just embrace it. I feel it's one of those things where we don't want to admit that we have that dark side, but it's there. And I guess it's like, would it be like in our subconscious, would you say it is?
I feel that when we are getting triggered, and if we're questioning whether it's childhood or whether it's the ego or the shadow. If it's the shadow, you're being triggered and it's the shadow, you're not going to want to see the information. You're going to avoid. If it's childhood trauma, you're going to feel pain because it's a wound. And when it's the ego thinks it's you. The ego thinks that it's like the identity is you. So the ego will, so you can understand the ego's main job is to stay alive. The one that fears death is your ego, not you, because the ego doesn't want to die, right? So I feel like those are some ways we can kind of see, okay, who's being triggered. If it's my inner child, one of the signals is I'm going to feel pain, sadness, wounded, like a lot of pain. If it's the ego, I'm going to feel like it's going to affect your identity. Like you're going to feel defensive, attacked, defensive. If it's your shadow, you're going to avoid because you fear seeing those things.
Yeah, avoid or do. I think a lot of finger pointing when it comes to shadow, like
somebody else.
Yeah, that person is this, that person is that, right? Because you don't want to see that you probably 100% of the time carry the traits that you are pointing the finger to, right? And I feel like that's probably one of the that's going to be like the hardest one. When it's affecting your shadow, is this person is bringing out a part of you that you do not want to admit you have, or that you don't want to believe that is in you. You're like, no, that's not me. That's that person. That person's the issue. That person's this. That person's that. And those are the parts of us that we have to admit. I think when we did the narcissist episode back in season 1, I think that was eye-opening for me to say, I am a narcissist, I was, or the victim mentality. I do play that role, that role has been played in my life. And those are parts of us that I did not want to admit to, but I was very, very fast at pointing fingers.
Yeah, because it's much easier to avoid sometimes, although it's painful. No matter what road we take, not taking responsibility and not facing our shadow, it's a lot of self-inflicted pain, because it's pain that we will not go anywhere unless we honor it and we feel it and we take responsibility of that part, right? So definitely, it could, a trigger can hit those points. Like that's a good one. It could hit those points. I had never thought of it in that way, to where, wait, there is 3 parts, or probably more than 3 parts. But for this example, we're using childhood, the ego, and shadow, that a trigger can be speaking to any of these 3 parts of you, right? So that's why being aware that these parts of yourself exist is so crucial, because without you being aware of your ego, without you being aware of your own trauma, without you being aware of your shadow, then who's in control?
Yeah.
Like, really, that's scary. Like, who's in control of your reactions, of your responses, of your choices? If you're not aware, who's making the decisions?
Of those they're big, huge parts of us that it, like, once you really start to pay attention, you're like, holy shit, that opens up like a whole different world, a whole different side of you that you're suppressing, or we're suppressing, I'm suppressing, whatever, and it's easy to, again, point fingers, and you don't want to look at yourself, right? So if a trigger is hitting your shadow, that's what you're going to do. This person's going to bring out a part of you that you don't want to believe that you have, that you are, that you act upon, that you do. Nothing like that. It's only that person. If they affect your ego, you instantly want to engage in like putting that person down, or you want to show her up. You want to show that person up. You want to be better than, because that person hit your ego, right? It's like it said in this book that I had been reading. It's called How We Can Stop Reacting and Start Healing Triggers. And I learned that, when it's your ego, you immediately feel defensive, like, oh, they're attacking me as a person, me as a person. At the end of the day, they're not attacking you as a person. No one's even attacking you. Your ego is just like on defense mode immediately. And yeah, they bring you down from your pedestal that your ego is on. You felt like whatever this person said or did brought you down, a few notches, and oh hell no, no one does that to me, right? And so what you want to do, you want to immediately take that person down. So you're going to say some random stuff about them to bring them down a notch or two, right? Because you want to do it to them too. That's a trigger affecting your ego right there.
And also, so if for the listeners, if you are someone or you know someone that you talk to and they're always on the defense, anything you say, anything you do, they just take it as an attack, or you yourself are feeling like, oh my God, like I just feel like everyone's out to get me. Everyone's just attacking me all the time. Pay very close attention that is your ego speaking. That's what it is, because the ego, what it's doing is protecting, like saying, how dare you like say those things about me, right? So it's gonna go on defense mode. If it's your childhood pain or the inner child part of you, you're gonna feel this deep sense of sadness and immense pain, because every time I deal with inner child stuff and I'm going into that part, or anyone triggers my inner child, the amount of pain I feel, it's immense. Whenever I deal with the inner child aspect of myself, or anybody triggers that part, oh my God, it is a pain that I cannot even describe. I've had moments where I cry and I can't even open my eyes because the pain is so intense. It like my body feels like it's in the past. And I notice that every time I deal with the inner child part, when I'm being triggered, I can't open my eyes. Like for some reason, it's weird. Our body will react in certain ways when we're dealing with inner child, with the ego. So when it's in shadow, what most of the time will happen if you are responding from the shadow is you're just going to avoid. You're going to run for the hill. Like, I'm never talking to that person again. You're going to avoid, or numb, right? So those points you brought up are, whoa, like mind blowing, because it opened me, it expanded me right now. I'm like, oh, wow, like there is like our triggers can hit different points over ourselves, right? So how do we know when it's talking to that consciousness, to the higher power in us, to source? Like, how do we know it's that part, the one dealing with it, right?
Yeah.
Because there's also another part, which is the higher self, your higher self, that is basically source, right? How do we know that it's that part, the one dealing with the trigger?
I feel that when it, the one that deals with it, if you know it's your higher self, I'd want to say you can stop and react, and you can stop before you react. Like you say, I guess what you're asking is, if you get triggered, how do you know who's responding is your higher self and not the ego, not the shadow, not the wounded child? Okay. I'd imagine, based on some of the things that I've been it's helping me. I'm definitely working through this, but I feel like it's definitely been where I'm stopping before anything comes out of my mouth. Right? Because that's what the reaction is. The reaction is my blurb, whatever the hell I'm going to say next. And I'm just like, okay, let me see where this is, where is this coming from? Why am I feeling all of this? Being able to just stop and be aware, I think that's been the biggest game changer for me. Like, wait a minute, you're about to say like, are you fucking kidding me? Or you're ridiculous. Why would you say something stupid? Or why would you say that, that before saying all of that, let me just stop. And being able to feel that awareness and saying like, all right, where is this triggering me? And it's coming from me, and me being able to be vulnerable and tell, I'll use my husband for example, and you tell him, you know what, like, I'm so pissed off, or I'm really irritated right now because this really brings me back to this part of, you know, where I feel like it's hitting me here. And just being able to say it so that he doesn't anything that comes out of my mouth after that, he no longer takes it as an attack, or he no longer takes it as me being defensive. Now he knows it comes like, it's almost like a protection, like, hey, this is where I'm coming from right now. So then this is what I'm feeling, right? And then I'm able to say it, and I feel like no judgment anymore from that. I don't even judge myself anymore. It's almost like I even protect myself from feeling that judgment of having those feelings, you know? Because before, like we said, we do feel shitty for reacting. And so now I can say what I'm feeling, but now I know where it comes from. So I don't really have that judgment for myself anymore.
Yeah. And that's like so beautifully said, because that's exactly like how you know that your higher self is speaking, right? That pause. Your higher self is the awareness. That's it. The awareness itself, right? So when we do fall back into the other patterns like pain or ego or shadow, because it will happen, because we're human and we're meant to, like, it's just going to happen. Just having compassion, like you said, for yourself in the moments where you went back to the old programming, and then being able to say, like you said with your husband, that's happened to me many times with my husband. It still happens to this day. And when it does happen and I reflect that I came from my ego or that it was a trigger, I'll sit with him and I'll tell him, I'm sorry. Like, I should have paused before reacting. And in that moment, it also gives me an opportunity to take responsibility as well. So that's like a big part, right? That when those things happened, we allow ourselves to just learn from the experience instead of judging ourselves for how we reacted in that moment. Because if we allow ourselves to learn to have compassion towards ourselves, then that opens the door for us being able to learn from what we experience. But when we're judging ourselves and being hard on ourselves and adding more abuse to ourselves in that moment, then you can't really learn from the situation, because you're caught up in that cycle of just like self-inflicted pain, and it leads you nowhere, right? Being compassionate towards ourselves in those moments is super, super important, because those moments, like I said, will teach you so much about yourself, and it will give you an opportunity to reflect on the trigger itself.
I think, and it's also what's really helped me is being able to, you know, when we're talking about relationships, right? Being able to express these things to your partner are going to be so helpful, right? To be able to express openly and be vulnerable at this point, right? Be vulnerable and say, hey, you know what? You know, we had this discussion, or we had this argument yesterday, or I blew up and, you know, I reacted this way. Being able to say, this is where it comes from. This is where it stems from. It builds this like cushion. So next time that it happens, it's not so eruptive. You know, you're not reacting because you're more aware, but your partner is also not feeling that blow, right? Like when you do say something, they're not feeling it as a direct hit to themselves, that they know where it's coming from. And I think that's probably one of the most helpful things for me in my marriage, and not only in my marriage, but I'm also seeing it a lot more how I need to also do it with my kids and explain it to my kids too. They deserve that, you know, they deserve to know where it comes from. And then I just, you know, when it comes to my awareness, I need to make sure that it kicks in before I react, right? I don't want to always be saying, I apologize for reacting. I apologize for reacting. I want to be able to stop myself before I react and not apologize for it later. So that's one of the best things. I think one of the things that can go wrong if you're kind of like in a toxic relationship and you do open up about your triggers to your partner, and then they use it to manipulate you, or they use it to hurt you when they know your triggers, they'll push those buttons because they know that it'll take you there. That would be probably like that's definitely a different episode.
Oh yeah, that's a whole episode in itself. Yeah.
But and that should say a lot, right? But don't use somebody's, if someone's vulnerable and they tell you these are the things that that take me to these places, let's not use that as a way to hurt them or manipulate them in any way, shape, or form. But I do feel that being able to tell your partner about them is just a huge help for your relationship in general.
I agree.
But I mean, I think that, I think for me, I've learned that it's not something that's there. A trigger is as painful as it can be in the moment, in that time, in those seconds, because it really is just a few seconds. It's like 90 seconds. I feel that the anger, if you just let it do its thing, it's just an emotion at the time, or anger or sadness, whatever. Just let it do its thing, and then come to some sort of realization. But it's not there to hurt you, right? I feel like it's really there to help us grow. But we have to approach them with awareness, right? And we have to approach ourselves with compassion and not like dwell in it. Because we can definitely turn it into power, like you mentioned earlier, giving our power to another human being when we are saying, they made me so mad, or they pissed me off, or dude, they irritate me, this person just makes me, they make me feel a certain way. You're giving them the power of how you feel. You're giving that. You're literally handing it over and say, you control me. You control me. You do whatever you want with me. And that's how I'm going to react. So you taking that power back and not letting others, take that power. And so you can actually create a deeper connection with yourself when you start to really realize what these triggers are for. So yeah, definitely, although triggers can sound painful, and it's annoying sometimes, and we're out there like projecting it on our issues, we're projecting them on everybody else. It really has everything to do with you. So it's 100% a chance for you to grow and learn something new about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. It's such a big opportunity if we choose to see it as a way of connecting deeper to who you are, as a way to bring more awareness as well. It's gift. Triggers I see them as a gift, and it's not an easy process because it isn't, because being an embodied 100% pure awareness, that is a whole nother level that we might or might never reach in this lifetime. Being just pure awareness, it's something that it's difficult because we have all of our parts, right? The ego, the ego's not going to go anywhere, but we could balance it. We could teach it to be healthy, but that's deep work, like intense amount of work. So just being compassionate, taking baby steps, even small steps, so that we could arrive to a healthier place. Before we close, I did want to touch on how do we begin healing those triggers and embodying the healing of the reactivity to triggers. Some of the ones I have is that to begin healing your triggers or balance them and respond instead of react is the awareness. You have to have awareness, first of all, of what triggers are. Have an understanding of triggers itself so that you can see, okay, this is what triggers mean. And if you need to pick up a book, go on YouTube, whatever is it, teaching yourself what triggers are. Second is awareness of what your own triggers are at this point. Once you understand triggers, the second step is what are your own triggers, right? Awareness of your body reactions when triggered. That's huge, because if you could become aware of the reaction your body's having, you can come back to the present moment and see, okay, I'm being triggered in this moment, and you can begin calming yourself in different ways, right? And then also awareness of who is in control when triggered. Is it the inner child? Mm-hmm. Is it the shadow? Is it, what was the other one we used? The ego. Like, who is in control at this very moment in your life? Yeah. And just, it's okay if the answer is not like what you want it to be, but at least you know who's in control in this moment, right? And if you're reacting at this time, reacting, most likely your awareness is not the one in control. Your higher self's not the one in control at this time. And to actually embody the healing of reactivity is to be aware when you're in the middle of an actual trigger. Once you get to a point where you're like, oh, I'm aware and I'm in the middle of a trigger, that's embodiment. You're already embodying that, when a trigger is present, right? Pausing, like you said, taking a pause before you're going to speak. Not everything that your mind is telling you to say is needed.
Right.
It's like having a filter. I had to learn that. My God, and I'm still in the process, right? But it was a big learning part of my journey because my mind just wanted to say what it wanted to say, right? So I had to step in and say, no, that's not needed for you to say in this moment, right? So taking a pause, breathing, have a practice that can bring you mindfulness to help you in the moment when you're being triggered. Anything, either a mantra, taking a pause, anything that helps you, whatever that is for you. And also work on regulating your nervous system. That's a huge one. Big, because if your nervous system's not regulated, then every time you get a trigger, your nervous system's going to take control, fight or flight. Immediately, right? And then just remembering that you're the medicine that you seek. You are your own medicine. You are your own recipe of healing. Nothing outside of you is the recipe for you. You are it. You're the medicine that you seek if you choose to see it that way.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And also just know that there is so many things that have happened to us in our childhood, in our lifetime. A lot of these things we're not aware of. We're not consciously aware of. And so even if you think like, oh, I'm pretty regulated, I know my stuff pretty good, you will not know. You don't know what you know until boom, it hits you. And then you're like, what the hell was that? Yeah. What was that? So there's so many things that we might not even learn about ourselves in this lifetime, but something is going to take it, and then that's it, and then we're going to learn real quick what it was. So, and it's okay, it's okay to not be 100% when it comes to being completely, I guess, healthy in there. I mean, not even healthy. I'd say to be in that perfect mentality. Like Devi says, we're human. We're here to have the human experience, and humans, we're imperfect, right? But knowing that you are taking those steps to that awareness, and knowing that it's okay if something comes back and it affects you again. You're not being hard on yourself. You're not saying like, damn, or looking at someone and saying, well, look at that person. I thought that they're like, I thought they were perfect, or I thought they were fine. Like, no, you don't, you don't do that. And if you're thinking that, that's a trigger.
Oh, yeah, because if you're thinking another human needs to be perfect, to be loved, to be worthy, like, that's your ego speaking.
Yeah.
Your higher self will never say, oh, that person says this, or that person, they act like this, but look at, never. That is not source speaking. That is your ego or your wounded self, something, but not source itself. Source will never, ever speak in that way, and your higher self would not either.
Yeah.
So it's just having that understanding that we're all human. We're all in our own journey. We're all living this experience the way we chose to live it. And it's different for everybody. And And yeah, we could say, okay, some know more, some, I don't really believe in that. I believe that we all know, we all have the inner knowing within us. It's just some choose to see it and some choose not to see it, right? But there will be a point in your life where you will see it when it's your time, when you chose to see it, right? So it's just like, it's just so important that we understand that awareness, like, takes us to like just these beautiful places, right? At the end of the day, who we really are is not this body, not the mind, not the belief systems. We're just pure awareness. That's what we are, right? So, yeah, it's been a powerful conversation to get into. I feel like it was good, like a beautiful episode. We always hope that our listeners learned a thing or two. Or
Yep, take something back. And definitely that's what we want. We want everyone to, learn the awareness, be more, I guess, more conscious of what you're doing, be more, pause more instead of reacting, think more, take that time, and get to know yourself.
And you know what? As you're saying that, I love the fact that our podcast is speaking to the awareness of others. It's just reminding them that their awareness.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, because like you said earlier, imagine like as a collective, the awareness level is just coming up. And that's what I said. It's beautiful. If everybody can just be aware of themselves, oh God.
Yeah, we live
Jesus Christ.
in a different world. So yeah, definitely this episode is an invitation to just heal, to get to know your own triggers. And next time that you feel triggered, ask yourself, what is this trying to show me? Instead of just quickly responding or not responding, reacting, right? Taking that pause for yourself so that the information that it's in front of you can serve you instead of like hurting you or hurting others, right? But yeah, this has been great.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes, so you guys know where to find us at Unlocking Our Code podcast. Thank you for staying till the end. We're super excited, like we said at the beginning, for season 3. This has been episode 1. We can't wait to bring you the rest of the episodes that are coming. So give us a follow, share with a friend, send us your comments, your feedback, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.